welcome to this session of Decoding Budget 2024-25, Mr. Kant. There's a host of questions that I have for you, but I want to begin with that one question that's being asked quite a bit. Why did the budget not choose to extend the performance-linked incentive scheme for boosting manufacturing and jobs to various other sectors?
Well, I think, Siddharth, to my mind, this is one of the most sensible things the finance minister has done, is to not spread PLI too thin. We've extended it to 14 sectors. We should see that these sectors deliver. And other than electronics manufacturing, 13 other sectors must deliver in a big way. Secondly, PLI is not the solution for all the challenges of manufacturing. You know, the challenge is to make India very, very efficient as a manufacturing destination by improving on its land, logistics, labor, many other issues, by scrapping rules, regulation, procedures. PLI was an interim measure for a period of 5 years to create global champions. It's only meant to for companies which are able to keep increasing their size of production and the scale of production year after year for 5 years. This is not a solution for all sectors, and I'm really glad that Finance Minister has not expanded it to other sectors.
Mr. Kant, does it mean that at some point of time in the future, the PLI will be withdrawn after the sectors in question have sort of stood on their own feet from a manufacturing point of view?
Yeah, the PLI was only meant for a period of 5 years for these 14 sectors. Within a period of 5 years, these sectors must deliver, and the companies who've benefited from PLI must achieve the targets and must expand and make India a global champion in manufacturing in these 14 sectors. That was the objective. The objective was not to perpetuate PLI. The objective was that India can't grow manufacturing on the back of constant subsidization. The objective is to make India the most efficient country in the world as far as manufacturing is concerned. And that's why the focus on ease of doing business, that's why the focus on improving logistics through Gati Shakti and many other things.
Mr. Kant, before I move on to other matters, just one quick follow-up. Given that there was a COVID-related disruption and we have seen certain sectors talk about it, has the PLI delivered from a job creation point of view?
Well, the objective of PLI was to enhance manufacturing production, create global champions. The PLI, if you have too many objectives, then you fail. And India, in its policy design, policy structure, constantly makes this mistake of having too many objectives. We should have one clear objective, and the objective was to enhance manufacturing. My view is that when India creates very big champions of manufacturing, as a consequence of that, you will have tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 producers. There will be backward forward linkages between MSMEs and between medium size industries with the large companies, and job creation will automatically happen over a period of time. So as PLI succeeds over a period of time, you will see many more MSMEs happening. You know, the electronic sector, where it has succeeded in a big way, you've seen a lot of manufacturing coming up, and I think the same thing will happen to many other sectors as they succeed in PLI.
One of the key tenets and features of this budget is a renewed focus on job creation. Over 10 years of two Modi governments, there have been specific incentives, but yesterday an employment-linked scheme has also been brought to the forefront. Around 10,000 crore has been allocated for it. Mr. Kant, what do you see it achieving, and is this money going to be enough, and is it just a starting allocation?
No, it's a very good initiative to say that we are going to support industries who are going to create jobs by 3,000 rupees for a period of 2 years, or we are going to provide support also to the people who get first time job for a 1 month of salary, or to say that new jobs being created in manufacturing. We will assist both the employer and employee in terms of reduction of EPFO. These are very good incentives. But if you read it around with many other good announcements yesterday, one of which was a new centrally sponsored scheme for skilling, and also a focus on women's skilling, all of them are very important. So in totality, it's a budget which focuses on employment. But my view on employment is that, India will create jobs when it grows at high rates for a long period of time. And jobs have to be created by the private sector of India. Most of the jobs will come out of the private sector. And secondly, if you look at the budget in totality, employment will come from tourism, on which there is a major thrust. Employment will come from MSMEs, on which there is a major thrust. Employment will come from infrastructure creation, on which there is a major thrust. And the second other challenge is that, as you create infrastructure, that means that your real estate industry will grow, construction will grow, your travel tourism will grow, which will have a multiplier impact. And therefore, you need to move people away from agriculture. India's 46% of our employment is in agriculture, which is very, very high. Even a country like China, the total dependency of employment on agriculture is just 20%. So you need to create good quality jobs, better paying jobs out of agriculture into manufacturing, into urbanization, into real estate, into services sector. That is really the key. And that should happen from the private sector of India.
Mr. Kant, in your assessment, has enough been said and done for agriculture in this budget? There is, of course, a new focus in terms of agriculture R&D. Allocations have been increased marginally because just a few months of this fiscal are left. Has enough been done, sir?
Well, quite a bit has been done in terms of focusing on vegetables, focusing on new varieties for horticulture. There's a lot has been done, and the challenge for Indian agriculture also is that we need to move away from paddy and wheat into new crops. We need to get into vegetables, we need to get into dairy, we need to get into horticulture. Those are areas where farmers will get a larger income. So I think the focus of the budget is in doing greater extent of value addition in agriculture, and you need to provide greater amount of cold storages, etc. So budget has done quite a bit on that.
Mr. Kant, how do you read the consumption situation, and do you think the budget proposals address this, particularly from a rural Bharat perspective?
See, consumption is an outcome of many things, and consumption is an outcome of greater job creation. Consumption is an outcome of infrastructure creation in rural areas. So if the focus of the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, if you look at it, is totally on Gramin roads this time. The entire focus is on Gramin roads, not on urban roads. So where will that money go to? It will go to rural areas. If you look at this focus on vegetable and horticulture, where will that money go to? It will go to rural areas. The job creation or the tax benefit of 17,500 rupees, where will it go to? It will go to all rural areas, the middle class, all this, and that should lead to the growth of consumption in the months to come, to my mind. Consumption is not a function of giving doles. Consumption is a function of good infrastructure creation. Consumption is a function of greater production and productivity in rural areas.
Mr. Kant, you have yourself contributed to the revival of the real estate sector. Given the fact that capital gains taxation also involves changes to indexation and the rate of taxation for housing, what could be the policy objective behind this? Is it the larger rationalization of capital gains, or is the government seeking to curb a certain kind of excessive speculation or price build-ups?
No, the government's policy is to make things easy, simple, have predictability, consistency, and to ensure that every asset class has the same level of taxation. So, to my mind, removing indexation and reducing the tax from 20% to 12.5%. Actually, if you look at the calculations, and the revenue secretary explained it in one of his meetings at great length, is actually will benefit 90% of those who bought properties. Actually the indexation will be largely beneficial to people who own properties. He explained it at great length. So I think in a very large number of cases it will be benefit, but the end objective is to bring all asset class together at about 12.5%.
One of the responses from stock market participants is that securities transaction tax was to be replaced by long-term, short-term capital gains. You now have a situation where both prevail, regardless of what the tweaks and STT on F&O. Is that good tax policy, sir?
Well, I think it's right now two things. One is I would also like to clarify that if you look at the United States of America, the long-term tax is about 20%. In India, it's only 12.5%. And secondly, it was also important to end some speculative measures, these tax on turnover tax, etc., is also to bring in a greater level of discipline in the market. So I think this will bring in greater stability for everybody in the stock market in the long run.
Mr. Kant, one of the notable things of Modinomics over the past 10 years has been this hard-won credibility on the macro fiscal front, and that has reflected in how global investors and agencies have revised their outlooks towards India and are putting in money. What does this budget do to take that forward?
Actually the hallmark of this government, and I think particularly if you look at the budgets in the last few years, it's very important to highlight this, the great amount of financial discipline that has been brought in. And despite the COVID, we did not do large splurges, and this particular budget brings it down from 5.9%. The interim budget talked about 5.1% fiscal deficit, and now at 4.9%. And then you talk about 4.5% next year, and then say that there will be a glide path. And that is really the job of the finance minister. So I would really like to compliment the finance minister on being extremely financially disciplined, being very prudent, being very pragmatic, and being a really outstanding finance minister as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned, despite the fact that she's increased capex spend on infrastructure from 1% to 3.4% and increased the outlay again from the interim budget to in this year, again taking it to 11 lakh crores plus. So, you're doing increased spending on infrastructure, you're providing 80 crore people with food, you're doing several things, several innovative things, but yet ensuring that you're maintaining great amount of financial discipline. That, to my mind, gives great credit to both India and to our finance minister.
Mr. Kant, the first 5 years of Modi government were about massive sort of reforms and major decisions. The next 5 included management of COVID. In fact, they began with a very big corporate tax rate cut. How would you describe what you see the roadmap or this current third term in terms of the Modi government's broader focus?
So, Siddharth, my view is that the legacy must be of growth. We've recorded 8.2% growth, which India is an oasis of growth in the midst of a very barren economic landscape across the world. And it's very important that India continues to sustain this growth agenda in the future. And this growth agenda will sustain if we also, able to control inflation as well, which is the key of this budget making. That India must continue to grow, and that, to my mind, is the key. That the services sector, the manufacturing sector, the urbanization sector, there's a lot of thrust on urbanization, new cities, industrial parks, 100 industrial parks next to these cities, 12 industrial parks launched. So many of these things will drive both manufacturing, they'll drive urbanization. And the challenge for India is that despite global slowdown, India must continue to grow at rapid rates of 8 to 9%. And that, to my mind, will be dependent on two functions. One is our ability to consume. So the consumption must grow as a consequence of many things that have been done. And the second is to make manufacturing and exports grow. Every time India has grown in the past, it's grown on the back of exports. So making India a manufacturing nation, making sure that PLIs work in all other 14 sectors, making sure that we are able to become a major exporting nation, these are very important for India. The legacy must be of growth with jobs.
Mr. Kant, Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly spoken in the past about, government is better off being in governance rather than running business. Given the seeming end of this major disinvestment era, should the focus now be on ensuring effective asset monetization? Because that hasn't really yielded a lot of results, or at least what had been anticipated in terms of asset monetization.
Well, asset monetization has been pushed a lot by Niti Aayog, and I think the good thing is that while roads are being constructed by NHAI, and a lot of these roads are getting monetized, you're also seeing REITs being done. You're also seeing that in many other areas, asset monetization has been pushed. So I think that's something where greater, it hasn't been stressed in the budget, but I think asset monetization remains a major area for the government. I mean, for instance, warehousing, or several other areas where there is no reason for government to remain in business, you will get greater productive efficiency in the economy with operation and maintenance being managed by the private sector. And the other thing I would say is that right now the markets are doing very well. So companies which are listed, public sector undertakings which are listed, I think the government should really look at the possibility of offloading some of these shares to the public at large, and that will give them a big leeway at right now to bring in public, making public a shareholder in many of these PSUs.
And absolutely, dividend income for the government as a major shareholder has also been significant. Yeah. The reason I asked you about asset monetization, Mr. Kant, was that roughly 50% of the allocation is going into the railways and the road sector, and that's a very substantial amount. A lot of people say, how long can the government continue to do this? At some stage, the private sector has to step in.
Yeah. No, I'm a great believer in asset monetization. I'm a believer that assets can be created by the government, but they need to be managed by the private sector to bring in greater productive efficiency in the economy. Productivity rates rise, operation maintenance becomes better, they become world class. The governments, we are all subject to constant transfers. Officers come in for a short while, the construction is shoddy, the operation maintenance is poor. So government is, as the Prime Minister has repeatedly stressed, has to be a facilitator, has to be a catalyst, should not get into too much of actual business operations on a day-to-day basis. That's not the job of the government at all.
Mr. Kant, there's so many more questions, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time with us today to help us understand some of the finer details of Budget 2024. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation with Mr. Amitabh Kant. Viewers, we'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
Already the budget has been announced and a significant announcements for the infrastructure sector has been kept as promised. 11.11 lakh crore is what Finance Minister has kept for FY25, and I'm joined by a very prominent voice from the cement sector. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. In the first